Hello and welcome to this new video, and in this video we're going to focus on a new topic, earth geometry. And so before we get into earth geometry, let's first of all understand what earth geometry is. So what is earth geometry? So earth geometry is just much more concerned with the allocations of places, with the calculations of distances between places or points on the Earth's surface, and concerned much more with the determinations of time differences between towns, places on the Earth's surface. But how can we allocate places, be able to calculate distances, and be able to determine the time differences? We use what we call as the latitudes and the longitudes. So the purpose of making positions on the Earth's surface is divided in sectors by imaginary lines which run from the north to the south and from the west to the east. And these lines are known as the latitudes and the longitudes. Let's look at the latitudes. So latitudes are basically lines which run from west to east. You can see on the right side, I've given an illustration using a diagram that will help us understand how and what latitudes are and how they look. Okay, so these lines are parallel to each other. That's the first thing you can notice on the diagram, right? So they are also known as parallels. Lines of latitudes are measured from the line of from the equator. So the equator is the line of latitude which cut the Earth into two equal parts called hemispheres. So equator is the latitude 0 degrees. So you can see this line here is 0 degrees, right? So that means that is our equator. So the lines of latitudes are measured from this very line, 0 degrees. For example, you can see that on top of the 0 degrees, there are latitudes. These latitudes are going to be measured from the 0 degrees. This simply tells us also that the directions of these latitudes will be determined by the 0 degrees. When you look at the latitudes heading on the North Pole, they are on top of the 0 degrees. So latitudes on top of 0 degrees are always heading towards the North Pole. And latitudes below the equator are always heading towards the South Pole. Let's look at longitudes. So longitudes are basically lines which run from the north to south. Remember, this is our north and this is our south. Longitudes are also known as the meridians. So each longitude passes through the north and the south poles. And this line here, which is 0 degree, is the Greenwich Meridian. Is the line from which all other meridians are measured from. So Greenwich Meridian is longitude 0 degrees. So you can see on the right side of the 0 degree Greenwich Meridian, the longitudes are heading towards east. And on the left side, you can see that the longitudes are heading towards west. Let's look at a great circle. Great circle. Any imaginary circle around the Earth's surface whose center is exactly at the center of the Earth is going to be a great circle. So, the equator is one of the latitude. Actually, it's the only latitude which forms the great circle. So you can see on this diagram that the center, is on the center of the Earth's surface. So the equator gives us the greater circle. And all the longitudes also gives us greater circle. How can we name latitudes and longitudes? So when a sphere is cut along the Greenwich Meridian, which looks like this, when it is cut along the Greenwich Meridian, it will look like this figure here. So you can see after it has been cut, right inside here we have the flat surface. This surface is what I've shown on the right side here. This will give us a better understanding on how we can name the latitudes. Okay, so you can see that we have point B, point C, which are right here, point B and point C. Meaning that the latitude on the middle here is actually A, this one. So, how is this going to help us be able to name the latitudes? You can see that we have a latitude heading towards the north and a latitude heading towards the south. The one heading towards the north, point B lies on it. The one heading on the south, point C, lies on it. So meaning that the latitude where point B is lying on is going to be defined by the angle x degrees. And the latitude where C is lying on is going to be defined by the angle y degrees. Let's take a good example. Let's say if x is equal to 25 degrees. That simply means that point B is lying on 25 degrees north because the latitude is heading towards north. If y degrees is equal to 45 degrees, then we would say that point C is lying on latitude 45 degrees south. That is how we can use the degrees or the angle x and y to define the latitudes. Allocating points on points or towns on the Earth's surface. Okay, so I have a diagram here, or an example for you. So in the diagram below, NTPS is the Greenwich Meridian. So NTPS is the Greenwich Meridian. Okay, so let's put that in mind, that NTPS, they are all lying on the same longitude. You can see that they are lying on the same longitude, and that longitude has been given as the Greenwich Meridian, meaning that it is 0 degrees. And the point P and Q are on the equator. P and Q here are on the equator. Then we have an angle given as the angle POQ. So we have POQ. So O is going to be our center there. POQ is 50 degrees and angle QOR is 45 degrees. So QOR is 45 degrees. Okay. Describe the positions of the points P, Q, R, and T in the term of latitudes and longitudes. T and R are on the same latitude. T and R are lying on the same latitude. So how can we describe the positions, or how can we allocate these points? The first thing you have to put in mind when allocating the points is always start with latitudes, meaning that naming the latitude the point is lying at or is lying on. Then you can go to the longitudes. I will say that whenever you start with the latitudes and then you go to the longitudes, then you have defined or you have allocated the town or the point. All right, let's start with T. So T is lying on which latitude? Remember, start with the latitude. T is lying on which latitude? So you can see that this angle here is 45 degrees. It's 45 degrees. That simply means that actually T is lying on latitude 45 degrees. And we can see that this latitude is heading toward the north. So meaning it's 45 degrees north. So we can take note. 45 degrees north, comma. Then let's look at the longitude T is lying on. So in terms of longitudes, T is lying on 0 degrees, as we were told that N, T, P, and S are lying on the Greenwich Meridian. So 0 degrees. You can see I haven't shown the direction of the Greenwich Meridian because this is the line where other meridians are measured from. So it's on the middle, meaning that the direction has not yet been set. That is how we can define or allocate the point T. Let's look at the next point, point R. Point R is lying on the same latitude point T is. So meaning that R is at 45 degrees north, comma. On which longitude is R lying on? So if the longitude NTPS is 0 degrees, meaning on the right side of the Greenwich Meridian, the longitudes are heading towards east. And then you can see angle POQ is 50 degrees, meaning that the longitude where R is lying on is 50 degrees away from the Greenwich. So meaning that our longitude is 50 degrees. What direction is it heading? Just identify where it's lying on. The longitude is 50 degrees on the right side of the Greenwich, meaning it's heading towards east. And that's how we can identify or allocate point R. Try to pause the video and try to identify or allocate point P and point Q. Then in a minute, you compare with what the solutions will be with me. Okay, so point P, if we go on point P, just grab this. So point P, okay, sorry about that. Point P we always have to start with the latitudes, remember that. So point P is lying on our equator. So it's exactly at 0 degrees, comma. On which longitude is it lying on? It's lying on the Greenwich Meridian. That means 0 degrees. Then we can go to point Q. Point Q is lying on latitude 0 degrees because it's lying on the same latitude with point P. So it's 0 degrees. Then we can go and see the longitude it's lying on. So point Q is lying on longitude 50 degrees east. 50 degrees east. I know it's 50 degrees east because even R is lying on the same longitude, and we said R is lying on longitude 50 degrees east. So meaning that even Q is lying on longitude 50 degrees east. So I hope you will find the same solutions as well. Thank you for watching. And these are basically the basics on Earth geometry. The new episode or chapter 2 of the topic is coming very soon. So go through this and take note of the diagrams, draw them and rehearse. Try to see if you can identify points. And in some few minutes after the video is uploaded, I'm going to post a question, then you try, then the solutions will be also sent, and then the other video will follow. Thank you for watching and have a blessed day.